So here we've got another question, very similar to the last one, in that it's a slight change to a very normal CRP5 question, where instead of being given the true airspeed and asked for the ground speed, we're given the ground speed and asked for the true airspeed, which means when we set up the CRP5, we can't put the true airspeed on the center bug and just leave it there. What we're going to have to do is set the ground speed using the wind mark that we've made. So quick recap of the problem the other way around. So if we were given the true airspeed and asked for the ground speed, then we've still not got the true heading. So again, we can't set up the CRP5 directly without the true heading. And so what we'd usually do is got the wind, so put the wind in first. So as I say, so this is what we would do if we had the true airspeed and we were asked for the ground speed. You've got the wind, put the wind in first, set up the true airspeed on the center mark, and then because we haven't got true heading, we can't set true heading at the top. So those of you that don't have a CRP5 have another model of flight computer. The CRP5 says true heading at the top to remind you that using the wind down method that we use, true heading should be at the top. So we use true track to estimate the heading, and then we apply the drift. We account for the drift. And that might take one or two shuffling changes, maybe even up to 3 changes of the heading to get the actual heading and set the track against the drift mark. We're actually going to do a very similar thing here, but instead of using the center mark on the TAS, we're going to use we're going to set the approximate heading of true track initially, and set the wind mark against the ground speed. And then when we correct for drift, we're going to have to reset the wind mark against the ground speed. Okay, so let's get on with it.
So in this question, as with many questions, we know the wind, so we're going to put the wind in first. And the wind is 213 degrees. Let's just adjust that to 213 at 21 knots. So we've now got to count down 10, 20, 21 knots. And notice I'll use a cross for the wind. That's so it's big enough to see but precise. If you draw a dot, if you draw a very small dot, it can be difficult to see. If you draw a large dot, it can be imprecise. So I will always draw a cross for the wind on the CRP5. Now, next thing would usually be to put the true airspeed in, but we can't put the true airspeed in because we don't know it. And we can't put the true heading in either, right? So those that have done any work with me will know that I like the CRP5, partly because it says true heading at the top. A lot of other competing instruments say index at the top. So for the wind down method, which we're clearly using here, we want the heading at the top, but we don't know our heading. We know our track is 321. So all I can do is estimate our heading. Well, our heading's not going to be too far off our track, so I'm going to put 321 at the top. And now I can put in the ground speed. I can't put in the TAS, but I can put in the ground speed, at least with this heading. Obviously, it might change shortly, or rather the ground speed won't change, but the position of the slide will change. I want my wind cross to be on... I want my wind cross to be on 123. Okay, so the wind cross there is on 100 and it's close to 123 knots. We're going to adjust it soon anyway, so I'll just get that. Okay, so there you go. That's on 123 knots. It's giving 9 degrees of starboard drift. So I'm going to set 321 against 9 degrees of starboard drift because our track should be against the drift mark. Okay, so we've got 321 against 9 degrees of starboard drift. And notice that the bug is now, or rather the wind cross is no longer on 123 knots. So I've got to shift that. Sorry for adjusting it out of sight. I can't hold the CRP5 and the camera at once. Okay, so there we have 123 knots, and it's about 9.5 degrees of drift. I'm going to try 10 degrees starboard drift. So 3, 2, 1 at 10 degrees of starboard drift. And I reckon it's slightly closer to 10 than it's actually 9.5. So whether you use 9 degrees or 10 degrees of starboard drift, it doesn't really matter. That's still at about 123 knots, as close as I can really set it. So what we've got is, if I head 311 true at a TAS of 118 knots, then I'll have about 10 degrees of starboard drift, and 10 degrees of starboard drift will give me a track of 321. If you use a heading of 312 and assume 9 degrees of starboard drift, that's fine as well, because as I said, it looks like it's about 9.5 degrees of starboard drift. And in both cases, you should get about 117, maybe 118 knots. So I'm going to say 118 knots. You might get slightly off that, but 118 looks about right. Okay, so the heading should be 311 and the track 118 knots.
So the answer to this is that the heading, the true heading, is either 311 degrees if you found that the drift was closer to 10 degrees, or 312 degrees if you found the drift was closer to 9 degrees, about 9.5 degrees. And the ground speed, sorry, correction, the true airspeed. True airspeed. I'm so used to doing the ground speed as the answer. I said the ground speed. I think it's 118. So you should be able to get within 1 degree and 1 knot of those answers. Okay. If there's any questions, stick them in below the video. Thanks very much.